Hello and welcome to another week's analysis behind the news. Another week and more police killed by hate and racism, as well as more innocents killed by hate in France, and a failed military coup in Turkey. Where do we start? If there's anything we want you to take away from these weekly videos, it's this. Ask questions. Doing so helps to seek out motives and will help you get beyond the media spin. With that in mind, let's see if we can pull together these events with a common thread. The failed military coup in Turkey, with all of its mistakes in not targeting Turkey's president as well as other strategic points that would have put them in full control, has us asking, was this a setup? An old trick of the Soviet Russians was to hold controlled uprisings in order to draw out further dissidents and threats to the totalitarian regime. Is this the case with Turkey? Was the coup held just to smoke out leaders and followers of the opposition? And how did our intelligence community miss this one? Though we officially condemned the coup through the Secretary of State, was there any role that the U.S. intelligence may have had in its planning and orchestration? It's been said that there is a war going on in the Muslim world regarding the balance of mosque and state, with those supporting it pushing it into violent means and those opposed wanting to veer away from the violence. There's a claim that the president of Turkey is moving closer to the jihad movement. Could it be that Turkey will turn into an Iranian Shah debacle with direct intervention by American intelligence? In any event, the violent side of the Muslim world was front and center in France last week, once again making the case for doing away with gun-free zones. Terrorists will use any means necessary to wreak havoc, and taking away a citizenry's right to self-defense should never be an option on the table. In fact, history bores out that a disarmed populace is a controlled populace that does not have the people's best interests in mind. The war on police continues, with shootings continuing across this country. The latest was on Sunday in Baton Rouge by a hardcore leftist black radical that was educated through the violent and hateful group the Nation of Islam. He also espoused hateful rhetoric as recycled through the Black Panthers, New Black Panthers, Black Lives Matter, and the Huey P. Newton Gun Club. So what is the common thread in these stories? For starters, how about President Obama? He has given ample opportunity for the violent black liberation movement to have a voice inside the White House. From someone who is mentored and trained by a communist terrorist, his actions should surprise no one. Of course, he is giving them a voice. Of course, he has given many speeches ratcheting up anti-police rhetoric while then deploring the killing of police officers. This allows him to talk out of both sides of his mouth. Did he not have an indirect hand in contributing to the problem? Outspoken Wisconsin-Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark thinks so, as do other sheriffs and police chiefs across this nation. President Obama, as well as his fellow big government supporters in Congress, will make sure that this contrived crisis does not go to waste in terms of growing the government, clamping down on American liberties, and pushing a national police agenda that is meant to control and not police the population. Let's look at France. Given the Brexit, EU leaders are frantically trying to hold together the immense power they have accumulated for themselves. The Brexit was a huge fracture in their crumbling union, and calls have been coming from several other countries to get out of the EU, including France. Since we know that globalists will never let a crisis go to waste, shouldn't we think that they'll be using this France terrorist attack as a reason for countries to stay in the Union? That the EU has the power and the might to defend its citizens from radical Muslims? It's surprising that Britain wasn't targeted to get them to stay. So the main thread that one can weave through all of this is globalism. It's present in the attack on police. Police must be nationalized if countries are to be comfortably merged. This merging comes through trade deals, as seen in the formation of the EU. It's present in the division of American citizens. Dividing the people according to race, religion, class, etc., sets them up to be conquered or ruled by an even bigger government that can handle all these problems. It's present in France, as the French people are looking to follow Britain's exit lead, and it's present in Turkey as the country continues its slow-moving process of joining the EU. So as we conclude today, let us hearken back to 1796, when President George Washington denounced entangling alliances and offered sound advice when dealing with other nations. Against the insidious wiles of foreign influence, The jealousy of a free people ought to be constantly awake, since history and experience prove that foreign influence is one of the most baneful foes of republic government. The great rule of conduct for us in regard to foreign nations is, in extending our commercial relations, to have with them as little political connection as possible. 'Tis our true policy to steer clear of permanent alliances with any portion of the foreign world, taking care always to keep ourselves, by suitable establishments, on a respectable defensive posture. We may safely trust to temporary alliances for extraordinary emergencies. Well, that certainly doesn't sound like globalist support to me. And it's doubtful that he would have approved of the globalist support that we see in all branches of our federal government. And if you're sick of this globalism, join the John Birch Society today to do something about it. Until next week, we'll see you then.